Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, what's up everybody? Just a bit of a pre-introduction to this episode. I have spent countless hours of the past 5 days trying to work out how I can improve the sound quality. I'm not sure where the issue came from, but I definitely do know that there is a lot of heavy breathing coming from my end. So if you can bear with the poor sound quality, it's not terrible, but it's just not perfect. I think that you'll enjoy the episode and the conversation. We obviously had Helmi on to talk about what he's been up to, who he works with, what his coaching philosophy is, and ultimately what he has been going through or what it takes to prep for a professional bodybuilding competition. So bear with us. Apologies. It has been sorted, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Thanks. Socks sold?
You know what?
Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back. I'm Ben Canning.
I'm Dave Kennedy.
I'm Helmi.
And this is another episode of Hacking Your Health podcast. So obviously you have all heard us speak in great lengths about Helmi. I don't even know if you have heard about how much that we've spoken about you in this podcast. So I'm glad that we finally got you on. If you want to tell everybody a bit about yourself, what you've been up to, what's going on, then we can get into the conversation.
Yep, no worries at all. So just off of training arms. So a little bit about me. At the minute, I'm on the road to going pro professional bodybuilding. I'm currently 15 days out from my first attempt at my first show. Outside of that, run a coaching business. And I don't think there's anything more going on in my life, man. Is there, apart from bodybuilding and my clients? I literally just work and I train. My lifestyle is my hobby.
No, I think that's pretty much it. What about, what sort of people do you work with? Because I think that's probably a general misconception with you.
Yeah, so a lot of people believe that I only work with bodybuilders, but the reality is, my background, I would say it would be deep into psychology. I studied Dr. John DeMartini, his course twice on human behavior and psychology. And just as a person, I like to... I'm just quite liberal. I like to look into things. I don't have a narrow mind. So I would also take that approach into my business, which makes my clientele pretty diverse. I don't just work with bodybuilders. I work with general population. A big thing that I work on with my clients also would be just mindset before we actually touch on the physique stuff. So in terms of if I could narrow it down to a specific demographic, pretty much people that want to increase the quality of their life, but they're in a position to actually devote the time and energy to training and nutrition. That would be my clientele.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Because I think, again, and I mean, full disclosure, you and I obviously worked on the gym floor together for four or 5 years. And I think there was that, people looked at you and had this certain, oh, he's just a fucking meathead bodybuilder. But then whenever they actually had a conversation, geez, he's talking to me about, the meaning of shit and, life stuff. I wasn't fucking prepared for that. And I'm like, yeah, tell me.
Yeah. That's the thing. A lot of people do misconceive me. Probably on the gym floor because I was always grumpy and angry. I always looked angry. But I suppose it's a stigma that comes with bodybuilding. Whenever I actually, you know what, I was vlogging the other day and I was in the car and I was listening to Lewis Capaldi. I don't know what it was, but it was pretty heartfelt. And I find it with stuff like that, guys that are on the same journey as me, pro bodybuilding, it's all about wearing, one specific mask, and that mask is masculinity. But I don't, for me personally, I'm just a human and I don't mind, as I said, I'm liberal. I don't mind testing different things. So I do think that's where I am a little bit different from most bodybuilders, because I don't mind, showing my vulnerabilities and just questioning things beyond surface level. So everyone who has that perception of me, you're all wrong. I'm not too bad.
I think that I mean, obviously, you know, stuff that we've done before and conversations that we've had in the gym and even stuff that Ryan's been able to record, like I think those sort of insights to actually you is what, you know, will set you apart from other coaches and other bodybuilding coaches, and it will sort of take that stigma away. I'm going to pass it over to Dave because obviously, like we said, we've had many a conversation about you, and I've sent him across a couple of videos that we've done, and I'm sure I can tell he has a fucking list of questions to go into. So over to you, Dave.
Well, first of all, Helmi, I think I know you better than you think. I mean, Ben talks about you all the time in a good way, and obviously, you know, he shows all the training videos and everything else, and so appreciate you know, all the stuff that you do with Ben as well. But I mean, I guess getting into it, like, what's your week look like on a bodybuilding perspective? Because, you know, for me, you know, I'm very interested in that kind of physique and getting bigger and growing and those types of things. What does your like general week look like, and where did you start off with? I mean, were you always big? I mean, were you always, you know, like how did you start off, and like how did you get to where you're at, and what's your general week look like on a regular basis?
Yeah, so was I always big? Yes, I came out of my mum at 100 kilo, Dave.
Had a cigarette in his mouth and bench pressing 300.
Yeah. So a general week. This is the thing, you know, with this prep, I think with my routine, it's more. It's not as complex, Dave, but it just takes a lot of time. It's very time consuming. So from a training perspective, it actually isn't too bad. I only train 4 days a week at the minute. But outside of that, do you want the nitty gritty of my routine, or do you want me to just give you a general scale?
We want the nitty gritty.
Nitty gritty, man. Yeah, don't gloss over this. We want to know exactly what's going on here. Yeah.
Okay, so every single day I will do the same thing. I have obviously, you know, I have non-negotiables that I have to do. As soon as I get up in the morning, the first thing I'll do is I will go into my mirrors and I will pose for roughly between 6 to 7 minutes. After I pose, I'll go in and I'll get a cold shower. After the cold shower, I will then go in.
Cold showers are a touchy subject around here. Dave does not like cold in any way, shape, or form.
No, you're not going to catch me getting a cold shower. Sorry.
It's funny actually. There's some people that say to me, "I love a cold shower," and then when we talk about it, they're like, "No, I don't get in the cold shower. I get out of a cold shower, but I get in the warm shower." I'm like, that's not a cold shower.
Yeah, there's no cold at all. Like, I won't get in or out in a cold shower, so no worries either way.
And then after that, I will literally set my supplements out for the day ahead. And then I think I counted the other day in terms of vitamins. I don't know if I should probably say this. I'll probably scare people, but at the minute, vitamin-wise, I'm taking 40 tablets a day.
There's only one guy that we had a bit of an altercation with about multivitamins, but we barred him from the Discord, so nobody's afraid of supplements around here.
Yeah, we banned him, so you're good on the supplement side.
Happy days. Get my supplements ready. After that, I need to get my food ready, and what else do I have to do? Yeah, supplements, food, prep everything, my powders, like protein powder after I train. Do all that stuff, and then I'll literally come down to my gym. I'll have my office here, and I'll do work, and in between work, I'll train for like 2 to 3 hours. And then after that, it's literally just train, work, and that's literally it. It doesn't seem exciting, but for me, you know.
When you say train and work after the 2 or 3 hours, do you mean you train for 2 or 3 hours, and then you also do additional training and working throughout the day?
No, so I will only train, like today I trained for 80 minutes, and then I'm free to work whenever I want. So I don't set a specific time on training. I'll either do a bit of work, train, or just train, and then just have the rest of the day doing work.
Got it. And so you typically, I mean, like on average, if you were just to go like full out on a workout for a day, how long would that typically take you? About 80 minutes, hour and a half?
Yeah, so upper body stuff will take 1 hour, 1 hour 30. Legs will take 2 hours.
And you only train 4 days a week?
2 hours 30. Yeah, me and Ben have this thing where, I don't know why, but around the training window, I sort of procrastinate a little bit. But yeah.
We'll train at 2, so I have to get there at 1:30.
Yeah, it's, to be honest, it works. It does work.
It works for you. It doesn't work for anybody else. But anyway, go ahead.
With the 4 days a week, so I personally believe the only reason why I'm doing this is because it's down to skill acquisition. So obviously lifting weights takes a great deal of skill in order to reap the benefits from it. So your split is based on how you recover. I find for me, because I know how to bring intensity to my sessions. If I start to go beyond 4 sessions per week, I'm going into diminishing returns because my body can't recover from the amount of intensity that I go at. And then on the other end of that, people can say, well, why don't you just not train as hard and train more frequently? And for me, it's not about that. It's about being in the session and training as hard as I can on the day.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense. Ben's been telling me, so I lift 6 days a week, and it's, I do high intensity all the time too, but I try to get on the second phase of my week, I get more towards higher volume and rep ranges versus, intensity on the earlier weeks. So it's a little bit less on impact on the body, but Ben's been telling me for a long time that 6 days a week is probably too much. So
I have been saying it's definitely too much.
Do you incorporate any type of like cardio or anything like that?
If you call walking cardio, Dave, then yes, I'll do 2.04 mile a day.
Yeah, but we've had as far as like eating, as far as eating in general, like, sorry,
no, you go. It's okay. You go ahead.
All right. As far as eating, like, what's your total daily energy expenditure, and like, what are you eating from a calorie perspective? And are you, when you're training, and obviously you're getting more towards the competition phase, are you more in a deficit to cut up? And what does that look like? And how do you manage that? And understanding your weight and calories and all that stuff.
Yep. So I've obviously offloaded all this to my coach, but I have an understanding. With food, we started on, I think it was around 4,500 calories, Dave. We then tapered that up to around 5,500 calories.
Oh my gosh.
Carbohydrates, I think we reached like 800 grams of carbohydrates. And see, to be honest, it was fine. I was digesting it well. There was no issues. I was still relatively lean. And then from the 5,500, that's whenever we started to draw back, obviously, like 10 weeks out from the competition. So at the minute, from 5,500 on week 10, I'm currently 15 days out and I'm on 3,500. To be honest, I can't see myself going below that because I don't know why. I just shut down. Like, I have to eat a little bit more calories than your normal person because I lose weight very, very fast.
Go ahead, Ben. I think that's a good point to note in terms of the food side of things, and obviously you and I spoke about this before, that the first time that you prepped, you obviously had to take things much lower because there physically was less of you, and I think you saying 3,500 calories, people were like, oh my fucking god, 3,500 calories, but in the grand scheme of things of where you had to take things to sort of bring them back. Is it a struggle? Because I know it was only 2 weeks ago that you were like, I don't think I am really struggling, but I've sort of noticed that the past week or so you've been a wee bit like on the edge for sure. Yeah. So recently, I'm not going to lie, it has been a lot harder with regards to the energy. It's not unbearable, but what I do notice is sometimes I'm not with it cognitively and physically. I'm just not there. So when I'm walking, it sounds so silly, but I'm walking up a small incline and I'm trying to keep my whole body straight because I feel like if I bend over, it burns more energy. So it's just little things like that. But I also feel like I'm floating when I'm walking because, I don't know, energy's obviously low at the minute, but as I said, I'm not at a stage where I'm like ready to throw the towel in. I can keep going, but I know I'm in a deficit at the minute, yeah. And I think, a good probably point to note about this is the approach that you're taking with your coach specifically is quite a hardcore approach. Like, it is, you know, it's a lot of boxes to tick. It's quite hardcore. And I know, obviously, from you from before, like, you would still sort of have that mentality, to the point that you told me the last time that you prepped that you would treat yourself by heating your food up whenever it started to get difficult, because you were eating all your meals fucking cold when we sat in Costa. But the point I'm trying to make is, you know, for people who are thinking about this and they're like looking at the whole process, the approach that you take normally is quite a hardcore one. But especially specifically working with Patrick, it seems to be like level up in terms of the boxes to tick and the things to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if you look at someone else, not even someone, if you put 10 people together and they're also on the same journey as me, I can guarantee that my approach is a lot more sophisticated, a lot more complex than all the other guys. And I think the reason why is because with my coach, he works with boys that are on the Olympia stage. So I'm basically following an approach that the highest level bodybuilders are actually currently doing at the minute. And with other coaches, they're, you know, up and coming, you could say, and they haven't reached that level. So I'm being handed down what the Olympians are doing. And I think that's why it is so complex. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's definitely different from most other people that are on the same journey as me.
Do you feel that like where does this go? Where do you want to go with it? Obviously, you're getting into the pro bodybuilding side of the house. Like, where's your ultimate desire to be at? I mean, obviously, competing on stage, is that where you want to ultimately be at?
Honestly, Dave, and this is going to sound funny, but as much as you know, my whole life it is bodybuilding oriented. In the future, I don't want to be that guy who's going to be doing show after show after show, and hopefully, what I'm about to say doesn't get back to the federation. But once I receive my pro card and I get pro status, I genuinely can't say that I have a deep desire to continue going and to beat the pros. If anything, on this journey, it's made me realize that I do want a little bit more flexibility in my life. So it's just a personal goal. I'm not doing this for the sport, whereas a lot of other people do. And there's like, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with me not doing it for the sport. It's just a personal goal that I want to tick off. I just want to reach a high standard.
That makes sense. Who's some of your inspirations? I mean, like as far as like pro bodybuilders, like what physique is like the best for you when you look at, you know, pro bodybuilders and some of the people that have been kind of inspirational for how you kind of train and do things? Or is it's just Helmi? Helmi's my inspiration.
No, I'm just so self-absorbed. I don't see anyone else. Obviously, you know, it sounds cliche, but Ronnie Coleman, I think, is, you know, absolutely incredible. You know, he's the best of all time. But guys on a sort of, you know, a lower, more realistic scale, I really like Chris Bumstead, but I like him for different reasons. He's more charismatic, whereas Ronnie is just a meathead monster who not many people could get very close to, and I admire his, you know, his resilience to get there. So much so that he completely wrecked himself, like physically. But I would say Chris Bumstead, and I really like the aesthetics of Hadi Chupin. They would be the sort of guys that I would look up to. But as I said, Dave, you know, I do this for a personal goal. I don't read into the sport too much.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for me, it was always like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler were kind of like the two, you know, big fans that I always had looking at those types of body types. I don't think I ever want to ever come close to being that big, nor competing in any way, shape, or form. I'm in my 30s, you know, late 30s, coming into my 40s. But it's always inspiring to see those guys and how crazy big, you know, they've been able to do and perform and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I think also when you look at these guys, and then obviously before you started training, Dave, you weren't, you know, as clued in with training and nutrition. But when you look at these guys and you realize how hard it is to actually transform your physique and how much, you know,
it's crazy
mental energy it takes, you respect them more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's been the biggest surprise in this journey working with Ben is, you know, Ben basically guaranteed me a six-pack of abs in a week, and it hasn't happened yet. So, you know, no, just kidding. But the amount of training that goes into making your body look that way is, I mean, it's like you'd mentioned, Helmi, it's everything that you do day in and day out, right? I mean, you wake up, you're putting the time and effort into your body every single day, whether it's, what you're eating, the supplements, or, the training that you put into, the focus that you're doing. It's a whole different level of charisma in your body versus somebody that, may casually run or is a jogger or runner or things to that effect, or, just doing things, at the gym a couple times a week. I always told Ben my biggest fear is, I'll be that guy at the gym that, a year from now still looks exactly the same as I did the year before, right? I always want to continue to grow and get bigger and everything else. And it's incredible what these folks, and obviously yourself and everybody else, has been able to do, the amount of dedication that takes to go and do it. And maybe you can give some, you'd mentioned early on about when you first start meeting with customers, that mindset aspect. How do you get people into that mindset aspect to kind of change their perspective on things and how this is going to be a long journey and to get to that type of mindset?
Yeah, I think if you look at anyone in any end of our field of life, Dave, when they're fresh out of water, only into a new job or just doing something different in their life, first of all, they need to feel like they have a purpose. And a lot of people, when you don't feel like you have a purpose, you don't have the conviction, which means your action isn't going to be congruent with the end goal. So for me, it's getting people to understand that they have as much purpose as the people that they admire. The difference is obviously they just haven't done the steps yet. It's sort of like the work comes before the belief. So a big thing for me is, it sounds crazy, but making people feel deserving that they can actually progress. Once we conquer that, they then obviously, have to have a sense of purpose, so much so that they're willing to withstand challenges and, I suppose, not succumb to situations that are going to try and throw them off track. Family events, going out with their partner, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with, but it's just about obviously, making the best decisions in them situations. But the main thing I would say is purpose. After purpose, what else after purpose? If it's on a personal level, I'll obviously figure out their biggest limitations, and it always comes down to self-perception. It's always perception of themselves. And once I can get an idea of that, it's not something that I can say that they're going to change immediately. It's something that I will frame. Okay, I'm aware of this. When you start your journey, we will, whenever we face this issue, we will deal with it then, as opposed to trying to forecast something that is completely out of our control. So, I suppose building momentum, and whenever you have that momentum behind you, sort of steering the car in different directions. And that's one thing that I promote massively as a coach, as opposed to me saying, right, this is your purpose, this is the best plan in the world, go and do it. It's not like that.
What would you say there's 2 points I want to touch on. Number one, what would you say that the biggest sort of friction points are for you whenever someone comes to you and you start talking to them about their mindset? They're like, no, I just want to fucking get bigger biceps and a six pack. Like, I don't, my mindset, I don't really need to work on. Like, what are the biggest friction points, and how do you overcome them with people? Because I know myself, and again, we've had conversations like this before, and especially if you work with mentors, they're like, no, you need to find out what their pain points are and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, this guy just wants a fucking six pack because he wants to look good for going on holiday. And you're like, you don't need to start getting into the nitty gritty with it. So how do you overcome that, or what do you see sort of like, what's the biggest things to overcome on that front?
Yeah. So when I'm speaking with someone, I'll be honest, the last thing I want to do is talk about logistics. I don't want to talk about how many grams of protein you're on a day. I don't want to talk about what's the best training split, because it's not relevant. So for me, everyone, as guys, you're always going to have that barrier up of, I can't show vulnerability this early on. But for me, it's trying to understand why someone doesn't want to show vulnerability. So it's sort of like death by 1,000 cuts. It's about asking strategic questions instead of me saying, why, like, if they're saying to me that they want to go on holiday, they want to impress girls or something like that, I'm then going to try and strategically ask them, is that something from within, and try and get them to, talk about their intrinsic motivation as opposed to the external stuff. So I suppose for me, it's about understanding what it is they actually want as opposed to the external stuff. And it can come in many forms, but ultimately it's just about asking the right questions. It depends on the person on the day.
Yeah, and the other question you mentioned there, obviously, about the situations that people find themselves in, and I know that this is one thing that people will look at you and be like, oh my God, he's at this fucking event of, you know, it's a christening or it's whatever, and he's sitting there with his Tupperware eating his fucking chicken with his hands. Obviously, you know, it's different for you and what you're doing, and that's not all the approach that everybody wants to take. But how do you then educate clients to the point where they know that they can have the things that they want and just manage it that slight bit better, and they don't need to sit there with their fucking scales weighing out their jam?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know, for me, for you, for Dave, what we done at the start and what we do now is different. So getting people to understand, like for me, I would feel awful as a coach if I said to someone, dude, go to that christening, take your Tupperware. Like you would have to be an idiot to do stuff like that, unless you're like this. I want to speak about this too, about me not having chocolate and pizza in a few years. It's just, I want to talk about that. But ultimately,
I want to talk about that too. Actually, I want to talk about that too. But go ahead.
But ultimately, it's about, you know, it's about educating your client that you do not have to 100%, 24 hours a day, stick to your food plan to get to your goal. Because no one comes to me and says, Helmi, I want to be, you know, I want to be a pro bodybuilder in the next 2 years. If that is the case, then of course the extremities of the approach, they're going to be severe. But most people don't want that. So I think that it only makes sense to...
Wait, Helmi, are you saying that I could look like you in 2 years?
100%, yeah.
Well, hey, let's talk after this. I might need a new coach. Just kidding. Just kidding.
You just have to bring your Tupperware everywhere.
You're gonna bring Tupperware everywhere.
So again, I think that's a good point. So you're talking, you know, people give you shit all the time on social media for how your food looks, and you know, why don't you just eat this and whatever else. And obviously, recently, your coach recommended, and I would say that this, and correct me if I'm wrong, I would say that this is probably the only time that you've went against his advice. He obviously suggested that you had a pizza or had a refeed meal or a cheat meal or whatever way you want to brand it, and you didn't do it. Now, I want to know, and everybody wants to know why you didn't do it. I obviously know what you did, and I'll link the fucking in the description, whatever I need to do. I want to know about that, but you're talking about people giving you a hard time for not eating chocolate, not eating pizza and things like this, so just talk a little bit on that. And I remember when we worked in the gym floor that you would go down my supplements here and come back and be like, just had 12 protein bars in the drive on the way back there. So you have changed, like how you do things has changed a lot.
Yeah. I think, you know, it's the same as there's, I don't know why, but like from an early age, I've always had this, if it's not hard, I don't want it mentality. And I don't know where I get it from, but pretty much with the chocolate, with the pizza, I decided to just completely abolish it from my diet plan. Number one, because I knew it was going to be hard and I knew it was going to be a mind game. And the second thing, obviously, I had to get to a point with my food that I couldn't have as much pizza and as much chocolate. But for me, it's just my personality. I'm stubborn. So when my coach said to me, Helmi, you can go and you can have a pizza, you can have that chocolate. But in my head, I'm saying, well, I've sort of built a personality, who I am today, the characteristics that I have and display, I've built that over a course of 4 years because of them actions. And for him to, you know, try and take that control away from me, it made me feel a little bit uneasy, and it made me question, is he the authority and am I just subordinating to his opinion? Do you know what I mean? So it sounds silly, but it's ultimate control. And I did say to someone, I think it was yesterday, I did say, I do want to get to a point where I will allow myself to have pizza and have chocolate again in my life. I just don't know when. And it sounds crazy, but I just feel like, and I think it'll come with maturity, but I feel like I'm failing myself if I do it because I've built so much momentum with it, you know?
Yeah,
but
do you think as well? Like, and again, I remember being in the gym floor. You'd be like, oh, "I've done 3 bars, 300 grams of dairy milk last night," and you would come in and you would like every single night. And obviously, you know, you were still obviously in really good shape, train at the same intensity, but obviously your nutrition didn't match that. So do you think it was the extremity of how much you were, or the maybe lack of control that you had in those situations whenever chocolate was presented or whatever the fuck it was, and then you were like, right, if I just abolish this completely, then I'm not in those situations?
Yeah. So one thing that people, I don't know, they might know, they might not know, I have Libyan genes, right? And if you're familiar with the Muslim world, Arab culture, food is just, it's insane. It's like something you've never seen before. It's incredible. So growing
food
up,
everywhere.
my family have always been foodies. And I would go to the extent of saying my dad and my sister are chocoholics, right? But growing up for me, it was, I'm a skinny kid, I can eat whatever I want. I was always eating chocolate, I was always eating everything. And I think that it annoyed me so much that I knew that I had to get off it, but I just didn't have the identity to get off it. So every time I'd done it, I give myself a hard time. Going into the gym, done 3 bars last night, and that, I think that's the reason why I completely abolished it, because it got to a point where I just felt like a huge failure every single time that I'd done it. And I'm not blaming my family, of course, it was my actions, but I think with doing it so much and not wanting to do it so much, that it led me to a point where I just completely done away with it.
So what does your food actually look like on a regular? So we've talked about the Tupperware, but what does your actual daily meals look like? I mean, are you just chicken and rice and that's it? Are you, whenever you think pro bodybuilder, it's chicken and rice, chicken and rice, chicken and rice. So, but.
Yeah. I mean, just on that, Ben had put a bagel up last week, right? So Ben had put a bagel up and
on Instagram, for people who don't know what put it up means, what he's talking about.
Yeah, sorry. I put it on Instagram on a story, and I had screenshotted it, and I'd shared it to my story. And people know that it's not going to be my food. But I would say, however long I've had Instagram, that bagel got a better response than any piece of food I've ever put up. and what I think what was funny about it was that the previous story was my chicken and rice. So every time people were replying like hard eyes, I was replying, what about the chicken and rice? But with food, yeah, so I don't have sauce, I don't have spices, I just salt my meals. I'll just give you a brief rundown. So for breakfast, I'll just have egg whites. Egg whites and cream of rice, and then after that I'll have chicken and rice, chicken and potatoes, beef and cream of rice, then chicken and sweet potato, and then another omelette.
That's pretty clean. I mean, and in there obviously you're getting some fats, but predominantly protein and carbohydrate based, right? So low fat, lowish fat, and then carbohydrates and protein being the two main sources there.
Yeah. For me, Dave, it's one thing that I was never in tune with was my digestion, and that's another reason why pizza scares me, because it's been so long that I haven't had it. If I was to put it in, the crumbs are incredible. But for me, the foods that I currently have in my food plan, the digestion, like how I digest them, is incredibly well, and that's something that I suppose I've built over time, and I think it's one thing that not a lot of people are in tune with. So the foods that I choose, it's not a chore. It's actually, I laugh at people who think it's hard. It's easy because I've been doing it so long. But I think the main thing is that the reason why I stay with it is because when I eat it, I digest it well. I feel vital, and cognitively it helps me also. So yeah, it's dry for some people, but for me, it's heaven.
You mentioned energy levels as part of that earlier on. How do you maintain energy levels throughout the day for what you're doing? So, like, what's your pre-workout meal look like? What's your post-meal meal look like? And how do you maintain levels of energy throughout the entire day?
5 scoops of pre-workout.
7,000 milligrams of caffeine.
So, in terms of pre-workout, at the minute it's obviously changed with my food. Before it was incredible. There was rice cakes, jam, banana, cyclic dextrin, but at the minute it's pretty bland. So at the minute I'll have my breakfast, and then I'll have the chicken and rice, and then I'll have what's it called? Cyclic dextrin. So I'll have 30 grams of cyclic dextrin. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's a powdered carbohydrate that pretty much just provides energy. So that's what I'll have pre-workout. And then post-workout.
Do you do much on the caffeine front? Are you a big caffeine person?
I'll not have coffee on the days that I train. So in a week I'll have 1 or 2 coffees max.
But you use the JP Prepare has caffeine and it's bound to have caffeine.
Yeah. But just coffee itself, I'll never have a coffee and a pre-workout in the same day. Yeah.
Too mad. The other thing, so obviously you spoke about the food side of things, and obviously, you know, egg whites, chicken, rice, potatoes at 3,500 calories. It's a lot of food volume. Like, it's a lot, you know, it's not like little tiny meals, you're eating big meals. And then obviously whenever you bring it up in the 5,000 calorie range, it's a lot of fucking food. One thing I want to know that we obviously haven't spoken about, that as your food has started to come down and you get to this stage, are you at the point now where you're starting to crave things and you're getting those like fucking mind games giving you the wassa wassa at the end of the day?
Yeah, so a few things here. I've been in Tesco, browsing the aisles. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. Just go with it anyways. Have you ever heard of a mukbang?
No.
Right? It's not as sexual as you think. So a mukbang first time I heard of it, I was like, what the hell is that? So a mukbang is, if you type it on YouTube, you'll see it. It's basically someone will go and they'll get multiple foods and they will just give an audio tutorial and visual tutorial on YouTube of it. So they'll get like McDonald's, Domino's, KFC, and then bars of chocolate, and they'll just try it, give their feedback, you know, that sort of thing. So I've been trying to get someone to do a mukbang. This sounds weird, but I get great pleasure out of buying someone food and smelling it and watching them eat it. And that has amplified recently because I'm getting hungrier. So before I trained, I actually vlogged my nephew. I tried to mukbang with him, but it just wasn't working. I got him to eat a Milky Bar and some Skittles, and that was it. So cravings, yeah. That's the thing. I am craving a little bit more than usual, but at the same time, I'm in that sort of stage where I know I need to control myself, because if I, you know, get this show out of the way and I feel like, right, that's it, done, I can do whatever I want now, I will seriously hurt myself in terms of the cramps, digestion, everything like that. So I'm happy enough just to go with the same food sources, but more. But then again, it's easier said than done whenever you're not as lean. So I'll see how it goes. But yeah, cravings definitely amplified.
Do you think as well?
Oh, good.
Do you think as well that I know that the thing is, you know, after the show, everybody goes fucking mad and eats 10 burgers. Do you think you'll have I'm going to go out, enjoy this meal and then get straight back on it? Or are you going to be just off stage in your trunks eating your fucking chicken and rice?
Well, this is the thing, you know, with the not eating pizza and chocolate and stuff, it's not even a bodybuilding thing. This is what people don't understand. People think that I don't eat chocolate or pizza to have a better physique. It's not like that, because there's guys out there that eat more burgers, more pizza, more chocolate, and they look better. They look better than me. The thing is just, it's a personality thing. So after the show, I mean, I don't know. I actually don't know. I would love a burger. I would love a burger. And yeah, but I don't know. To be honest, if I get the result that I want to, I will be happy enough to reward myself with it. But it changes on the daily. It sounds crazy, but it's a little bit of a, can I control myself? It's just mind games.
I've contemplated doing the whole chicken and rice thing just to try it out for a little while to see how well it do. And Ben's more so like, eat what you want to, just make sure that it keeps within the confines of, you know, what you're doing from a macro perspective, and making sure you're, you know, getting the right ample amounts of food and you know, protein and things to that effect. But I kind of want to do like a 6-month, chicken and rice, type of meal, like clean eating, digestion, everything else. I'll tell you, I tried that cream of rice. I can't do it. It's like eating boogers to me.
Helmi will send you his tutorial on how to make it, because whenever you make it properly, it's entirely different. Because I got a tub before and I was like, what the fuck?
Which flavors? Because you had me do that maple one, and that was like eating ass. So what other flavors do you?
I like the triple chocolate one, but
triple chocolate, okay.
Disagrees.
Yeah, the best one is chocolate hazelnut or vanilla. There's nothing else that compares.
But it needs to be made properly. You need to make it properly, because it entirely changed the whole thing for me.
Yeah, mine was like real clumpy and real dry, and I was just like I was eating like paste. It was like the best way of explaining it, right? So I definitely did not make it right. That's for sure.
That's what I said in one of my YouTube videos. There's too many people out there. They're either making stew or they're making soup when it comes to cream of rice.
Yeah,
it's either too lumpy or too watery.
Now, cream of rice is obviously a really good source of carbohydrates. I mean, is it a quick source for digestion? So, like, you're maximizing that very quickly?
Yeah, so you would have it around, well, I do anyways, I have it around my training window, because there's virtually no digestion in it. It's already broken down. It's a powder form. So as soon as you obviously train, you want to replenish carbohydrates, you want to replenish protein. So cream of rice seems to be the best option. Whenever you put it against something like oats, Cocoa Puffs. Whenever you put it against something like oats or something like that, it's just, it's something that's going to take a little bit longer. I wouldn't have a problem programming oats after a training session for clients, but whenever you start to scale it up, it is, I suppose, the most superior source after you train.
One thing I noticed with I'm a big fan of oatmeal, so I have a lot of oatmeal that I'll do after training. But the issue I run into is that it takes so long to digest the oatmeal that I have a crash in between where I don't have enough ample energy. So like I'm just dead afterwards. Like I have sluggishness. I can go take a nap. Like I just feel super tired afterwards because I have no energy. So being able to replenish that energy very quickly to something that's easily digestible, I think is a good approach to that for sure.
Yeah,
I think for me with it. Go ahead.
Can I go, Dad?
Yeah, you can go.
I worked it out. I was in the car park of the gym that we worked in, Ben, and there was this one thing that kept happening to me, and it was annoying me. It was basically called a carb coma. Everyone knows what a carb coma is. So I was eating too many carbohydrates in basically one sitting, and I worked out my threshold. My threshold was if I go beyond 90 grams of carbohydrates, that is when I start to notice a slump. So I don't know if you want to take it on board, Dave, but with the oatmeal, if you were to mess about with the serving size to see if you get a different outcome, I found it incredibly well because I knew where my limit was. Yeah. And when I stayed below that, it actually helped with my productivity.
Yeah, it makes sense. I appreciate that. I'll take a look at. Maybe balancing to a little bit of the cream of rice, not maple flavored, and then maybe some oatmeal would be good.
The cream of rice for me, it was a food volume thing. So like I always have oats before I train, but there gets a certain point where you're having a big fucking bowl of oats. Like, whenever you're 120, 150 grams plus of oats, like it's a lot to get through. And then you're talking about wanting to have a nap. So the cream of rice was me. It was for the volume and for the, I could have it a lot closer to training and I was still actually able to function. So that's where it came in for me, but only after I actually was able to make it in the right way.
I'll definitely go through that video to see if I can get the perfect technique down for cream of rice.
So if you send me it, I'll link it in the show notes. You get all the hits. So
it doesn't taste like paste or ass. I got it. Okay, so we're good.
I mean, when Dave sent it to us like ass, I'm asking different questions. What? How do you know what ass is?
Anyway. Right. So talk to us then. The show is in 15 days, yeah?
15 days.
So obviously, there's the peak week conversation and all that sort of stuff. So obviously you have never went through this with Patrick. So what do you sort of expect in that week coming up, or what does that look like for you?
You know what? I would love to give you something elaborate. even for my own sanity and reassurance. But with my coach, it's literally, we've been working together for, say, 10 months, right? And this is the way it works. On a Monday, I'll message him photos and I will get 1 or 2 responses, and that's it. So this is how I'm looking, this is how I'm feeling. Right, okay, change this, don't change that. When it came to, I had asked about bringing my food over because I'm going to fly my sister over, and I'm wondering if she should bring my food over to me, or is it going to completely, rotate? But from my experience from doing a photo shoot before, the food completely changed on the last week. But he said we're going to have the same foods, just different amounts. So I don't know how the pick week is going to go. And I don't think he knows either until he sees what I'm looking like at the end of the week. But, I mean, what is a pick week? A pick week for everyone is pretty much 0 carbohydrates, high water, possibly diuretics, and dragging your claws about the floor until you get the stage.
But do you think that differs based on how ready you are? And this is, I think we've had this conversation before. Like, you can be so ready that you don't need to do that water manipulation. You don't need to eat fucking thousands of grams of carbs or no grams of carbs or whatever. So if you're ready bang on the day, there's not that sort of extreme, like, I'll have to go through this fucking shit show for a week here to get out the other side of it. Yeah,
pretty much. So people would message me and they would say, should I water load? Should I do this? Should I do that? You have to be in a position, to do a proper pick week, because the whole idea of a pick week is pretty much like it's getting the final detail out. And in order to get the final detail out, you need to be in a position to, as in you can't have too much body fat on your body. So for me, we've already spoken about this, Ben. I'm not going to be the most inside out guy on stage. I'm not going to be completely shredded, but I'm fine with that, because as long as, there's detail in the muscle, I'm bringing enough size. And that puts me in a position where I'm thinking, I don't think that my peak week is going to be anything too drastic, because I'm not in a position where I'm like, thick skin shredded.
Yeah. And I think, again, I guess you could probably touch on it, but, the category that you're competing in has changed. And I think that the look for that will be entirely different as to what you had sort of initially thought. And I think that, even I think it was that day that we trained legs and Ram was shooting the video, you were like, you didn't feel like you were in the position that you should be. And then even as simple as having a shave and removing the body hair, you were like, oh fuck, actually I'm in a much better position than I thought. So even that, accompanied with the tan, like all those, you're talking about getting the finer details, like all those things that happen like super, super last minute are all to come.
Yeah. That's the thing, like it did throw me off with regards to, I was originally supposed to do classic physique, and then I could never meet the weight category because I'm currently 101 kilo. The weight category was like 92 kilo. So I probably would have had to take like a leg or 2 off to get on stage, and that's not ideal. But we went from classic physique, which is, it's charismatic, it's a complete different look, it's different poses. The judges are obviously looking for different specifications. And then we're going over to heavyweight bodybuilding, which for me is like, shave your head and put on as much muscle as possible. So automatically, I assume this ain't going to work out. But what I realize is that there's a big difference between UK and USA in terms of, categories. Like a heavyweight bodybuilder in the US is completely different from UK. Obviously, just like everything in US, they do everything at scale. So that sort of just sounded. That's why I'm telling you to bring me oats. but obviously, like when I looked into it, I was like, it's not so bad. But yeah, it sort of it did sort of throw me off. Even now, I still don't feel 100% ready, but I know I will be.
I'm sure that's the way you feel. Like I'm sure you'll never feel like you're 100% ready, but getting to it. I know one of the things that Ben had mentioned is that it was one of your leg videos is that you've been dealing with injury, right? How are you overcoming that, and how are you dealing with that? Oh my gosh, I got a rip on my sleeve here. I just noticed that.
Flexing out of your t-shirt.
For those that are not watching YouTube, I have a rip in my t-shirt here. I must have
he just flexed his shoulder.
Dude,
and
Helmi
sleeve
comes on, and I grew 10 sizes too big for my shirt, so that's what. Damn, it's a new shirt too. I really like this one. Anyways, all right, go.
So with the injuries, you know, it's I was deadlifting. I deadlifted 300 kilo. I pulled
660 pounds.
I pulled it for 3 reps, but I knew on rep 1 my back was gone. But I don't know why I've done the additional 2. So I popped my SI joint out of place. In terms of how you deal with that, Dave, you know, I seen a physio. He said rest it, put ice on it, everything like that. But for me, you can't rush an injury, so I just had to work around it. So if I could train my arms, I was training my arms. Obviously, I couldn't train my legs. And then after that, I'd injured my leg. Same process. There's nothing my coach can do. There's nothing a physio can do in order to speed the process. It's just about me, obviously, working around it. And what I mean by that is training what I can train, still sticking to my food plan while having, you know, a level head. But the main thing is just, it's when it comes to injuries, it's just time, and obviously not trying to rush the process because you'll just end up prolonging the injury.
And I guess that's a question I have too. So you mentioned in the training piece you're doing, what did you say, 350 on deadlift?
300 kilo.
300 kilos.
660 pounds.
Oh dear God. Okay, so for you, I mean, is it the amount of weight that you're pushing, or is it volume? Like, how do you track? Like, what's your best advice for muscle hypertrophy, growing muscles? And you know, is it the strength aspect of things and going super heavy, or is it, you know, like where do you kind of draw your program at to maximize muscle growth?
Remember I said at the start of the video about skill acquisition? So that's obviously going to vary per person. So if I was to take someone on board and they weren't, you know, too experienced, we're going to go for the typical 4 sets of 10 to 12 reps. And I suppose the same principle applies with 4 sets of 10 to 12 to 2 sets of 8 to 10. And then principles are, you have to be stable. So you need to ensure that your body has stability, as in you're bracing in the right places. And then the second thing is ensuring that you have a quality connection with the muscle. And then the third thing would be putting yourself in a position where you're progressively getting stronger while keeping the same consistencies, you know, with your setup, with the exercise in place. I would say that goes across the board for anyone wanting to build muscle. I'm going to also contradict myself a little bit. When it comes to that connection with the muscle, as you start to get bigger, Dave, you'll find that you can sort of put it on automatic. So you don't have to sit and think about a mind-muscle connection, and you don't have to melt your head and change things until you get that sweet pump. You can put it on automatic because there's enough muscle fibers there to take care of it itself. I found that's a difference between me doing 4 sets of 12 to 2 sets of 10. I don't have to think about a mind-muscle connection because it just happens automatically. So it's something that whenever you're training, you will progress onto that stage.
Now, do you track?
It's a good.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
I think it's a good point to note, and you know, obviously everybody looks for the perfect split, and you know, like how can I look like this and then look like that, and obviously you and I have been training together for a while, and you know, if you tell people what the training actually looks like, you know, you're not talking about these fucking magic rep ranges and whatever else. It's literally like we'll do 2 working sets and that's it, and people are like, what do you mean is that? And it's a case of, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but basically for me, if we're doing 6 to 10, if we are in a position on the first set that we get more than 10, then we put more weight on it for the second set, and if we don't, we keep it the same weight. Like it's as simple as that. And there's not, you know, there's not back off sets and fucking handstand push-ups in between and all this fucking fancy shit just to try and get you somewhere.
Yeah. Do you mind if I nip to the toilet? I'm down to go.
No. Go ahead.
I really need to go.
Well, when you're pushing 3,500, 4,000 calories, this is what happens, folks. And I can attest, because at one point I was up to 4,000 calories, and I would use the bathroom all the time.
I think the issue, and I can actually sort of relate to this in terms of like where he's at in terms of prep. So okay, yes, still on 3,500 calories is quite a lot, but obviously he's used to having a lot more calories, and obviously, you know, drinking 4, 5, 6 liters of water per day. If there's less food in your system, and we've talked about this before in terms of like carbs holding on to water, the water will literally food it, you know, you will go to the bathroom more and whatever else. So you do get to that stage where everything's just a little bit. I guess it's just a little bit more complicated than that.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think talking about his program, about how he's lifting and whatnot. I mean, I like the simplicity of what you had mentioned before in previous podcasts that you do as well, which is, if you're looking for that 5 to 10 rep range, and you get the 10, put more weights on, right? And then you're just sitting there. That's how you feel yourself, your body, your movement, and it takes all of the complexities of having to write it down all the time. You have a general idea of where you're at, and when you continuously add on to there and continue to get stronger. So. Man, doing 650 or whatever on a deadlift.
660.
That's some goals, man.
The thing about and it's exactly what Helmi mentioned about skill acquisition. Do you know what I mean? Like, if I had started training the way that I train now, I probably would have made the progress. It's about, some people do need to do more reps and more sets, because the more that you do, the better you will become in terms of that actual movement. So, I wouldn't, if you're listening to this, being like, well, maybe I just need to go and just do 5 to 10 reps. It's like, it takes time to actually get there, and it takes time to actually, it's again, I was just saying that it takes time to actually get there in terms of what you're saying about skill acquisition. And, some people at the start will need to do higher rep ranges and more reps so they actually get the feeling for the muscle and what it should be like. But obviously you get to a stage that, and again, I guess actually one thing to note on this is the intensity. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you have somebody, and again, me at the start of training, like, you couldn't have given me 2 sets of 6 to 10 and told me to go away, because I wouldn't have had the intensity. I would have done it and been like, oh yeah, that was easy. Whereas the sort of mental battle that goes into it, and the sort of mental preparation, and the fact that we fucking both train with our headphones in and don't speak to each other, that sort of, you can't teach that. It comes from time, and it comes from literally putting the reps in to go, right, okay, you know exactly what you're going in to get here, and to quote you, if it's on the table, you fucking take it.
How so when I totally forgot what I was going to say. It was so good. It was so good too. But Beck kept talking. No. So when you're, from a training perspective, I think one thing that you did really well with me early on, Ben, was the weight aspect of things wasn't a concern. It was proper form and technique, and really developing that mind muscle body connection, right? And I think Helmi hit on that too when he gets a new person coming in, that he's going to be training. It's really focused on that technique. You don't want to be throwing weights up on there, and you don't want to be destroying yourself and causing injury. And then from there, you start to get an understanding of your body, what it's capable of doing, and then from there, you start to do it. My question to you now, obviously being much more in the advanced states of things, do you train to muscle failure every time, to where you cannot do another rep? I mean, you're just destroyed, or is it more of a, you feel your muscles and where you're at and where you want to go with it?
Is this for me yet?
That's for you. Yes. Welcome back from the bathroom.
Yeah. So obviously, it differs on the exercise, Dave. So this is an example, right? Whenever you're training, you're going to have 2 types of fatigue. You're going to have systemic, and you're going to have local fatigue. So when it comes to a deadlift, I am systemically done. Locally, my muscles, they can go all day. So what I find is, when it comes to compound exercises, you'll be more systemically spent, if that's a word in America. You'll be more systemically, spent. Whereas when it's in isolation, dumbbell curls, tricep extension, side auto raises, I do think that would be the position where you do want to reach failure, muscle failure, local failure, where you can't go anymore. That's my personal experience.
That makes sense. My last question, because we're running out of time now, but my last question for you is, one of the things that I always found fascinating is that, Ben is obviously a trainer, and Ben has a trainer, and you have a trainer. So, explain to me, like, why a trainer is important as a trainer to have a trainer. Because, to me, I understand, when I'm first starting off and everything else, I need somebody there to guide me and to grow. And I never thought about it from a trainer's perspective. A trainer also needs somebody there to help them and to watch them and to grow. So that oversight and that commitment, I think, is really important for folks to understand, is that, having a personal trainer, while it's a big step in commitment, the oversight, the structure, the program, and somebody being able to look at you from a whole picture perspective, regardless of where you're at in your stage, whether you're just starting off or all the way to pro bodybuilding, is such an important piece to consistency and kind of making progress along. So love to hear your thoughts on that, and like, why do you still have a trainer?
Yeah, I honestly, Dave, it's because, a big thing is, a lot of people don't have self-insight, and whenever you're in the process so much, you can get inside your own head. It doesn't matter. Like, this is the thing. I'm not insecure, or I don't believe that I don't know enough when it comes to knowledge of my training and nutrition. I'm absolutely fine with it, but it's about pulling the trigger at the right point, and this has to come from a rational standpoint, someone who has a different set of eyes on you. And for me, it's obviously, you know, the accountability and the commitment. By me paying another trainer, like, a lot of people look at it as I'm directly, you know, working with that guy, but it's me committing to myself, and he is obviously providing the tools. Another thing is, when I'm working on someone else's standard, then I'm going to exceed what I know, and I'm going to operate at a much faster and a much higher pace than if I was to do it by myself. So there's multiple reasons, but I would say the main thing, and a lot of people will say this, when it comes to cutting your head, you do not think rationally. You're completely irrational, and you can find it really hard to make deductions in food when you need to make deductions. So it's better to outsource that for someone to give you what you need.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you know, I'll tell you, when I first started off, there was times where I was going through kind of my transition phase of, you know, being skinny fat and then to, you know, actually putting on muscle and being able to understand what my body type was. And I'd be like, Ben, I don't feel like I'm making any progress. And then, you know, I'd start getting into my own head, and I'd be like, is this even working? And, you know, Ben would be like, just step back for a second. Let's take a picture of you when you first started to where you're at now. And that program and the data and the measurements and everything else that goes along with that, you know, shows that progress over time. And here's the thing, you know, I'm not going to be, you know, a bodybuilder in a year. You know, it's going to take you some years to unjack what you've done before in the past. And having that, you know, program in person to help you kind of push you forward, I think is such an important aspect to being successful in this. I mean, I've never been able to be successful in my entire life, you know, with something like this until I had gone with a trainer, until I'd gone with Ben as part of that. So I think, and I can't, you know, testament enough about having your own trainer, regardless of what stage you're at, you know, to help push you forward, right?
Yeah, I think, you know what, I was thinking about this also earlier. When it comes to, you know, hiring a coach, I genuinely believe that the people that receive the best results are the people that use the coach for his tools, as opposed to relying on him for their lack of, I suppose, intrinsic motivation. I find they're the people who, you know, no matter what they do, they're going to find a way to progress. But the coach just obviously is going to, it's going to obviously help progress that further.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is, obviously, and, you know, again, I know you're saying that, you know, the things that you will have learned working from Patrick, you would never learned, you know, doing that shit by yourself, or it would have taken you infinite amount of time longer. And then obviously we can feed that back into what we do. So I think that's another big aspect of it as well. And, you know, you hit the nail on the head of, you then operate at a different standard, because, you know, we're built that, you know, we're okay to let ourselves down, but we don't fucking want to let everybody else down. Especially, you know, if you're saying that he's working with people who are on the Olympus stage, you're like, well, if I'm working with him, I need to be working at that level, or else he's just going to fucking sack me off.
Yeah, literally. That's I had that conversation the other day with someone. You know, whenever you're by yourself and you're working at your own standard, you're just going to do things when you want to do things. You know, your goals are circumstantially, but when you're working with someone that's such a high caliber, it's like, you know, what you do on a daily basis, it's greater than a session or a chicken and rice meal. It's much greater than that.
I think, again, someone put this back to me the other day. It's almost like you start to see it as a privilege to work with this person, and you don't take the piss out of it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's sort of a good insight to it, that yes, okay, you could look at it, well, I'm paying this fucking guy, so, you know, he works for me or whatever, but it's almost a privilege to work with people at the level that they do.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to do the usual, where can everybody find you? I'll link all this shit in the show notes, I'll put that, whatever. But if you want to tell people where to find, not literally, don't be giving them the address to the gym, just like social media.
As soon as you said that, how did you know I was going to say the address of the gym?
Because I know how your brain works.
So social media, main thing would be just Instagram. So just Helmi Danini. I'm going to spell that Helmi. Danini, Dneni. If you type that in, you will see me standing with no top on. That's probably it. Instagram would be the only place. Also YouTube, same thing again. Just type my name in, Helmi Danini. I document my road to pro on there, and going to be a big YouTuber in the future.
Doing vlogs. I'm on the YouTube channel too. I've had big features, so I mean, catch me there. Yep. Usual stuff from us. We hack health across all social media platforms. And yeah, I mean, thanks for coming on, and no doubt I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, so nice to finally meet you, man. And you know, I've heard so much about you. It's good to meet you in person, and obviously virtually. But you know, it's
maybe
awesome
you could come over here and you can train in the dungeon with us.
Hey, listen, I might plan that. Maybe we'll do something this year or next year. I'll try to out deadlift Helmi.
Yeah. We could take him for a cold water swim.
Yeah, that's not happening. Man, my flight just got changed. It's so weird, you know.
Cool. Thank you very much. I'll catch you next week.
See y'all later.
See you later. Bye.